Hey everyone, it's Lucid and welcome. I have an announcement that I'm pretty excited to make. I finished making this map. It is called Bastion of the Pantokrator, and it's an anti-dogpile map. Some of you might have seen the previous anti-dogpile map and the corresponding game that I cast on it. There were some problems with that map. It was very choke pointy. And the way it was laid out, there were kind of these columns. And if somebody else in another column was running away with the game, it became very hard to fight them. So it was this kind of too artificially constrained map where it's kind of hard to move from one column to another. And it was too choke pointy. So yeah, we've made a new version. And I've been wanting to do this. It's been something on my to-do list. I tried to do it earlier, but then kind of the tools at the time, because everybody was getting the tools ported over to Dominion 6, they weren't really ready for it. So anyway, time has passed. The game has been patched. It's a lot. Also, you can play with mods and stuff on the servers. And a lot of these tools like Map Nuke and stuff have been heavily updated. And speaking of which, before I get much farther into this, I'd just like to take some time to thank Nukita, or Nuke, who is the wonderful creator of Map Nuke. I know they are working on another map generation tool, and I'll be really excited to cover that on the channel when it happens. I believe the idea of that tool is that it's going to be more open form, like it's not necessarily going to be on a grid. But yeah, huge thanks to them for getting Map Nuke set up for Dominion 6. I'll put a link to the web. I think it's a GitHub page where you can download Map Nuke. You can also, when you download it, you'll have the option to tip them $1 or whatever. If you use it a few times, it's totally worth it to tip $1 or $2. Just a way to show appreciation. You know, there's no way Nukita's making any money off this. It's like, I don't know. Yeah, it's a labor of love. But yeah, we've also been able to use this tool now to do pretty amazing things. So I'm really excited about it. Also, big thanks to people on Patreon who kind of support me. And then thanks to everybody who was on the stream kind of helping. I've gone and you can see there's a lot of province names here. And a lot of these have to do with people who've supported me over the years on Patreon. Mostly it's people who've supported me for a good number of years at a decent tier level. And I probably have at least 100 custom names sprinkled in the map as a thanks to all the people in the community, like people who are admins on my server, people who are admins on other servers, just as a little hats off to them. So back to the map. It's a big map. It's a 16-player map. I couldn't come up with the correct orientation of cups that gave me all the things that I wanted. I'm sure somebody can figure it out. If nothing else, you can just partially rotate the cups. What I'm calling a cup is this mountain range. That brings me to the core idea. Let's describe what this map is trying to do. The core idea is this. It is no fun in a game when you get 4v1'd, and it's just like, even if you win the 4v1 or 3v1'd, even if you win it, you're just gonna have almost no chance of winning. And that just kind of sucks. It happens a ton in new player lobbies. The difference is in experienced player lobbies, there's a good chance the experienced player is going to sit there and be like, you want this? Come and get it. And they're going to fight the shit out of you while you try to take their stuff from them. In a new player lobby, a lot of times people are like, okay, here, have my stuff. I'm going to quit and go start a new game. And then they quit. So the idea behind this is that it is much more difficult to organize a very early XV1. Now, that said, it's still pretty easy to do a 2v1. And in fact, you can still do a 3v1 against somebody. And I'll explain. So let's say we're playing Pyrene. You can see there are these totally impassable mountains that we're nestled in. We're in this nice little cove. Safe, wonderful to be in. This is like a warm cup of hot chocolate on a cold winter day. This is when life is good and easy. And then past that, you get out into the open world where there's diplomacy and treachery and fighting and all sorts of, horrible things you'll have to endure. So, yeah, the way these cups work is one side of the cup will have, so all the cup opens straight down or, straight left or straight up or straight right? But wherever it's pointed, there are connections to the 3 provinces directly beneath it that are unobstructed, except for the fact there's always a lake here right in front. Then to go adjacent, to go sideways with these, to these other connections, which if you think about it, if you're trying to invade somebody coming around this way, whoop, if you have to go all the way around to go through, that's a long way, right? But if you have mountain survival, or in the summer, if it's heat on both sides, you can pass through mountain passes, which is what this is. So if it's heat on both sides, and this is where things, Breath of the Desert and Woven Winter, which are going to change temperature scales, can dramatically change how some of these openings work. But you can like potentially cut off somebody's entrance by doing temperature spells here. So I think there's a lot more like tactical kind of strategic thinking in terms of movement versus a much more open map plan. So this is a mountain pass, which is open in the winter, but also open to anybody with mountain survival. And on this side, there's a river pass. And a river pass is open when it's cold on both sides. And it's also open if you can swim or are amphibious. So yeah, that's basically how those things work. They're all going to have a mountain at the front of the cup, and they're all going to have a forest at the front of the cup. And there's going to be a lake here, and then across from that lake, there's always going to be a farm. And you will see this is common to all of them. Now, aside from the things I just mentioned, pretty much I think also these provinces in front of the mountain and the forest are pretty much always normal plains. But everything else, like what's here, these provinces, these can be random essentially. There's a bunch of randomness in pretty much the rest of the map. A lot of times in the junction box, which is what we might call this, I'll try to stick a lake in somewhere. And that gives us kind of the broad structure. There's also roads. Roads connect from the back town out to the front, though it does land right in front of the lake. But still, it's a way to kind of get to the front a little bit faster from a town you would build in the back. So yeah, there's a little bit of road there. And then most of the corridors, what I'm calling a corridor, is this 2 province-wide thing that goes between 2 cups that aren't facing each other, or where no cup is facing it, right? So this is a corridor, and you can see there's a road that goes through here. The terrain in the corridors is mostly random, though most of them have some kind of terrain in there. It's not like plains through, I don't think, any of the corridors entirely. Yeah, so that's basically how this works. The other thing of note is there is a cave system in here. There are no underground cave starts. So if you're a Cave Nation, if you're playing Zabalba, if you're playing Abyssia, you will spawn on the top world. Somebody could go and try to make like a version of this. You can copy feel free, by the way, to copy the structure, the format. I'll try to, if somebody asks, I'll put a link to the layout template that I use to generate just the spacing of caps and thrones. Though you'll probably have to change where the thrones actually and where you want them to spawn. But anyway, there is a cave system, and the way the cave system works is kind of interesting. So the cave system is right in front of your capital. That's how you get into it. It's 1 province away from your capital, and it's at the entrance. It's oriented towards the entrance, right? The way into the cup. So if you think about the ways into your cup, you can come into your cup here, you can come into your cup here, or you can come into your cup here through the cave system. You have basically 3 provinces. If you need to defend all these 3 provinces, nobody can, unless they fly or magic phase over, they're never going to be able to get inside your cup. Everything must get through these provinces. Now, this is the cave entrance, and basically underneath every area is a 5-province cave. And there's usually a drip cave, there's a crystal cave, and then there's a normal cave. So these are the caves that are in there. Now, sometimes you'll see it looks like it's connected. This is not connected. This is a mountain pass that separates it. There's how the map laid out. They put these next to each other. So like if you want to go from here to here, you actually have to go up through the overworld. You'd have to waddle around here, get in this cave system, and now you can jump back in. So the cave, it's not a mass connected cave system, but there is a big cave system. So it's about 5 caves per player is how big the cave system is. So pretty sizable, but not huge. But this is also a very big map per player. I believe including the 5 provinces per cave, I mean, the 5 cave provinces per player, including that, I think it's about 30 provinces per player is about how big it came out to be. So it's a very big map. So that's kind of the rough structure, is we have the cave system. Oh, right. So the cave system, it goes, you can look on the map. So there's there's an underground cave that either goes this way or it goes this way. And basically it's connecting, this cave entrance is basically connected to one of your corridors, right? So this one connects over here, and this one, right? This is partially to make the map less choke pointy. If you only have one army, they can, and you're having to defend here, they can now do like, okay, well, maybe you have to defend here, and then maybe you stealth through here. It's getting rid of some of the choke points of the map. The waters cause some kind of choke points, but the waters can also be sailed over. You can make items that let armies sail and stuff in the mid game. All the mobility things are going to be really useful. Sailing's going to be super useful on this map. You can sail from here out to all these provinces. And then like you could sail from here to here to here. Like this is only 2 moves away for a sailing unit going all the way this far. So sailing's really useful. The terrain movement, being able to do mountain survival or, you know, flying is super useful on this map as well. You cannot fly over these mountains, but you can fly through the mountain passes and you can fly over rivers. So there's a lot of utility to be had by the different map moving. In terms of matchups, like who are people kind of intended, air quote, to fight? Generally, when I've laid this out, there's 2 close neighbors. So as Pyrene here, we're here. Our close neighbors would be whoever's down here in this cup, because you can see we point towards them. We point towards the opening. So we'd have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We're a long way. So it's hard to like truly rush somebody down, but this is kind of the closest way. It's like 7 to get here. Now, somebody far away, like this person who's to my left, they look like they're close, but they're not really that close because we have to go 1, 2, and then if we don't have mountain survival, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. It's a long way away, right? But caps are going to be farther away on general without any of the obstructions in a big map, just because there's more provinces. But with the obstructions there and things are definitely farther away. Now that number that I gave you, like, I can't remember if I said it was 10 or 11 or whatever. That number would be significantly smaller if we had, let's say, perfect map move, like we were never obstructed by terrain. In that case, it would only be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So it'd be 9 to get there, 13. So you say 4 moves going cap to cap if you have the terrain movement types, right? And this way, the other thing is a lot of times the mountain passes are lined up on the same side. So if like one of these guys has mountain survival and the other doesn't, they're going to have a lot of advantages in fighting this war. But there's still some advantages in having water mobility because you could go back and forth across these rivers, etc. So the movement, I think, is a lot more important and impactful on a map like this. But, you know, for the most part, it's not super choke pointy. Like, here's a choke point. You could maybe hold this. This is sort of a choke point. You could hold this. But if you break out past that, or you fly past it, or you magic phase past it, or you gateway past it, or you do whatever, you know, you could break past these choke points, and then you're in like a 2-corridor wide thing. And the previous mountain arena map, which was the first anti-dogpile map, the circles, I believe, or the cups extended fully all the way down. And I believe the mountains and the rivers were more at the opening. Here, it doesn't extend quite as far, and the mountains and the rivers are at the sides. These corridors are also a little bit shorter, and they're all too wide. So the other thing about this is there's no columns because the cups are all rotated in a weird way. If this guy was running away with the game, they're not my natural first war target, because it's a long way between our caps. But if they're running away from the game, it is totally possible for me to come over here and execute a war, especially if I have mountain survival. But this is a lot closer war, especially if I've got to muster an army and get it down to their cap. The thing is, if I muster an army over here and I've got to go conquer their cap with it, by the time this army gets to their cap, they've got like 10 extra turns of production. I could take some of his stuff, like maybe they've expanded over this way, they've taken more of this than I want them to. I could just come over here and take it. And then you might get like a little bit of a sizzly Cold War for a while. And I think those are kind of fun. They're not existential, but they're kind of fun. Usually it's kind of a lose-lose the longer that war goes on. Either they should peace out and accept some terms, or eventually someone or both of them will end up getting conquered by somebody. But this is one of the targets. You could go down here. This is one of the close ones. The other close one is actually this one. We get to this one. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Right? And I think it was like 9 to get here. And then it was like 13 to get here. So this one's still pretty close, right? but it's going to be closer than like marching all the way over down here across this river, then up here, then around this river, and then back over this way. To go from here to this capital, you would go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. That's only 11. That's actually only one more than this one. So yeah, anyway, you can see you can still get to more capitals, but yeah, there are some that are significantly closer. So yeah, I kind of a word of caution. I don't think you should think of this, hey, I can only go to war with this. Like, one way to think of it is like, if anybody attacks me who is not one of these two people, like the people who have the exact closest start position to me, then like it's very rude of them. I think you could be attacked by a lot of different people in this. You know, like if it's a very long distance war between your caps, especially if neither of the nations are hypermobile, it's probably the kind of thing where you need to jostle for whatever the borders are going to be and then just agree to it and then devote your attention elsewhere. I think there's some changes we could look at potentially making. Like if this is too choke pointy, one thing we could do is take these borders, which are here at the front of the cup, and we could move them back a tile, right? So this would actually be all open. And then to get into this tile, you know, these would be the mountain passes or something like that. But I think this, and that'll make it a lot less choke pointy. It'll cut down the distance between a lot of the caps. We'll have to see how it does in the game. I'm pretty sure it's going to be a lot more fun to play. In some ways, I think the choke pointiness wasn't even a problem really in the first mountain arena. I don't think that was like the biggest issue. I think the biggest issue was that it felt really hard to coalition people effectively. And I don't see that being... It's definitely going to be harder to coalition people on this map than in a normal default map nuke map. But I don't think it's going to be that hard. I think there's going to be pretty big avenues. Like, people should have decent borders through which they can attack somebody. Like, if this player's gotten big and they've come over and they've like run through here and they've run up and eaten this player or something, or they've run up and eaten this player and they own a bunch of this stuff, like once I break through, I can have like a lot of area to attack this guy. You know, I come over here, I try to weasel my way in here, or I come through here and attack in this vector, or try to get up in here. But it is certainly more choke pointy. Yeah, so I think the issue isn't like my ability to attack them. It's really just there's still some choke points you're gonna have to fight through. So I think that's it. It should be fun. Yeah, this is on Steam. I'll put a link to this in the description. And hope you guys check it out. It should be a ton of fun to play in single player games too, where the choke pointiness actually is like a major advantage against fighting the AI, because a lot of times when you're playing single player, you don't want to have the resources to like attack 10 provinces on your border with like 100-person armies in every province. And that can be annoying to defend against and to script all the armies and this, that, and the other. So I think this will also be a superior single player experience. Oh, final thing is generally the more a map makes it difficult to coalition somebody, which I think these maps do to a degree, but a much lesser degree than Mountain Arena. Those are maps where it makes sense to be aggressive, right? Like there's the reason to not be super aggressive in Dominions often is you're worried about people being like, oh shit, this guy's too big, we need to go kill him. And that doesn't mean you want to be small. Of course, that's still a problem, but it's certainly a thought for like, oh shit, I'm too big. You know, a lot of times I'm usually happy to let somebody get too big because then me and a buddy will get together and we'll kill them. But you can't let them stay too big too long or they'll actually be able to defend themselves. But yeah, the more difficult it is via geography and stuff to coalition somebody, the more it makes sense to just be like, all right, fuck it, I'll be the big guy. I mean, that was like a factor. If y'all watch my Late Age Relay series, I was an underwater nation, right? That makes it very difficult for people to coalition me effectively. So I was like, all right, let's be the big guy, right? So there's a lot of reasons to be aggressive on a map like this, I think. And those are fun. I think playing aggressively is fun. And while I think strangely enough, a map like this favors being aggressive, it also is kind of a defensive map because like it's easier to defend yourself in a choke pointy situation often, and with more distance between caps. So I think in many ways it's like good for the very aggressive player, and it's good for the defensive player in different ways. Hopefully you enjoyed playing with it, and I'll probably be hosting some games with it on my server. But yeah, we'll see you there. Take care.